Hello everybody, Mannix here. Going to be doing a quick little knife review on the Schrade Ultimatum. This one's kind of been going around recently. This is a very, very good knife for the money. It's a great budget folder. Retails at $29.99, but you can get these for around the $25 range. And we have an AUS 8 blade steel on here. There it is. So 25 bucks, AUS 8, and then of course you have to count in the actual length and how much material you're getting here. But according to the specs on knifecenter.com, we have a blade length of 3.5 inches, a closed or handle length of 4.5 inches, with an overall length of 8 inches. Blade thickness is 0.13 inches. It's saying this is a Wharncliffe style blade. I would agree with that. Some people would call this a reverse Tanto. I'm going to call it a Wharncliffe. That's where the business end is. Hollow grind, satin finish, G10 handle scales, full stainless steel liners, steel backspacer right there most likely, not skeletonized. It is a Lockback, tip down right hand carry only, dual thumb studs. We got some very aggressive jimping right up here. Weighs 6.4 ounces, so it's a bit chunky. 8-inch knife, 3.5-inch blade, AUS 8, 6.4 ounces, 25 bucks. G10 handle scales, steel liners. So it's a chunky, heavy-ish EDC/tactical blade, I would put it in. But for 25 bucks, you really can't beat this very easily. There's pretty stiff competition out there for that low of a price, under 30 bucks. I'd imagine this knife would go for like 35 bucks or so, but 25, that's even better. Even for 35, it would be okay, but 25, it's a home run. It's thick, it's chunky, there's a lot to hold on to, it's very hand-filling, the ergonomics are very simple. I like how it's nice and curved, it's slightly rounded around the edges. Let's see if you look very closely. I like this kind of the Schrade logo pattern they have going here on the G10. Medium traction, kind of like the Spyderco Tenacious line. It's very commonly used on most G10 handle knives. It's just that perfect amount of traction, I think. The jimping is very aggressive, actually. It's not as fine as most jimping patterns. It actually really locks your thumb in, but it's a bit uncomfortable if you really press your thumb in there. Kind of an uncomfortable, extremely aggressive jimping pattern. It works, but if you were like hacking wood with this or something while using the jimping, it would wear on your thumb pretty quickly, but it gets the job done. I've seen useless jimping. I would say useless jimping is worse than uncomfortable jimping, so it is what it is. And then we kind of mimic that pattern down here on the steel backspacer or metal backspacer, whatever that material is, kind of redundant, along with the G10. So nice little attention to detail done right there, like what knife companies do that. Lanyard hole, which is embedded within the backspacer. That's also a nice little touch. I like how it's inside of there. It's just nice and safe and won't get cut as easily. And closed off design. I like that. It just looks more solid, looks more strong to me. It means nothing, but I like that. I like flow-through knives. They're more elegant looking, but I like knives that are closed off like this. They just look more technical. I think they're cool. Thumb studs are good. Cylindrical. They're rounded at the edges right there. Nice and smooth, nice and comfortable, which is ironic. We have uncomfortable jimping, but we have very comfortable thumb studs. Very smooth action on here. They call it the Ultra Glide pivot. I'm not really sure what sets it apart from a normal pivot that uses regular washers or ball bearing pivots. It's not quite as smooth as a ball bearing pivot knife, but it's smoother than most other standard Lockback folders. So it's actually really nice. When I rotated this pivot screw and I was trying to tighten it, it cranked down the other side, I found out, which is underneath the pocket clip. So it's kind of a pain in the ass. You got to detach the pocket clip in order to expose the other pivot screw if for whatever reason yours was also rotating the other screw. Then you need to put something in there, another screwdriver to clamp it down while you unscrew the other one. But I got it Loctited and it never loosened on me since. Okay, lockup. It's not the most strong. I mean, there's not very much side to side. I got it tight enough and we still have a nice smooth action. You can flick it out with no wrist movement with this amount of oil I have on here and at this tension. Again, good lockup. It's not fantastic. It's a standard Lockback and it's kind of lower riding. If you're not familiar, the lower riding Lockbacks that are longer actually cannot withstand as much stress as the higher riding ones. It's just basic physics, but they're a little bit easier to disengage. That's kind of the trade-off. Some people don't like a lot of the cold seals with their triad locks with small little lock bars. Some people have trouble disengaging those. This is very easy to disengage for a Lockback. So that is an advantage at least, and your thumb won't be in the way of it. So it's out of the way. And because it's a versatile design, we can grip this in a lot of different positions. You can bite your thumb down just like that. You can do this style grip if you're cutting rope or some sort of looser fibrous material and you're doing a pull cut. It's very versatile and it's not too basic and too boring that you literally just have like a brick right here. We have some kind of dynamic shape going on and it's comfortable enough. You know, it's like a B minus, maybe C plus for ergonomics. It's really not that bad. I like how it's thick and chunky, a lot to hold on to, but it is heavy, over 6 ounces for, kind of a plain Jane, simple Lockback knife. We're going to have a lot of horizontal strength. and the internal mechanics are going to be nice and safe within these steel liners right here, but it's a bit heavier, a bit chunkier. However, it's nice and sturdy, so that's just kind of the trade-off. It's up to you. And for the price point, if they skeletonize these, it would probably jack up the price maybe up to the $30 range instead of the $25. I don't know, but maybe that's just, it keeps things nice and cheap. I like the blade shape. I love Tantos. I love Wharncliffes. It's not a Tanto. It looks like a Tanto from far away. If you saw this really quickly from like a weird angle or something, you might think it's a Tanto blade. It's not. It is a Wharncliffe, but again, some people call us a reverse Tanto because of what's going on up here, or a modified something or other, sheep's foot, blah, blah, blah. I call it a Wharncliffe. To me, it doesn't really matter what's going on up here because that doesn't really affect the performance of the blade that much, but to each their own. Wharncliffe, reverse Tanto, whatever you want to call it. I like it. It's very functional. Very good for doing the whole tip rip thing. Flush edges like this. It's almost flush. It's not 100% flush, as you can see. My handy grid right there. It's actually weaving away from it. We have some curvature, but it's mostly flush, so resharpening is going to be very easy, especially if you're a little newer to it. Kind of a sloppy start on the edge down there. There's no distinct choil that starts the cutting edge, but a lot of knives do that. It is what it is. Long handle here too. So it's not the most efficient blade to handle ratio. We have somewhat of a shorter blade when it comes to the handle, but it keeps things nice and legal because we have 3.5 inches here, and we have a lot to hold on to, so you still get that extra reach. So maybe that's all you really care about. I don't know. Not too bad there. It's kind of elegant up here. I like the design, like the steel liners and the bar and the cutouts. These are useless as far as jimping is concerned. You're not going to use them, but it looks cool. Nice little touch. Lockback knives, I'm not the biggest fan of. They tend to be a little bit slower, a little bit more stiff than a lot of other locking mechanisms we have out there. But hey, they're strong enough. They get the job done, and they don't suffer from what I call too many parts syndrome. It's literally just the lockback bar. You have the pivot screw that it's on, the torsion bar, and then the blade itself, if you want to consider that part of the locking mechanism, which I guess technically it is. Some knives, they have other locking mechanisms that do this and that, they're faster and blah, 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 but if they have an extra spring in there or two chintzy little springs, what if one of them snaps, one of them breaks, one of them goes bad? Now the whole locking mechanism's ruined. So I will give lockbacks that. They're very simple, cheap to produce, and there's not too many liabilities in there. Very classic, old design, but hey, they get the job done, they work well. I don't know how well this is going to wear in time. Lockbacks tend to wear a little bit faster than most other locking mechanisms because it's just how they're designed. They're taking both the negative and positive force, taking the brunt of all of it. But again, it's simple. So if they threw a different locking mechanism on here, would it be a little bit more expensive? I don't know. One of the biggest selling points of this knife is the fact that it's just so damn cheap, and I really like it for that. So it's a big old chunky, beefy, heavy knife, lot to hold on to. It's going to be good for defense. Again, even though it's a lockback, it's going to be strong enough, and we have their custom pivot something or other system that makes it a little bit more smooth. It's actually very nice and smooth. I'm surprised. It does not feel like a $25 knife. Again, it feels like it's more approaching the $35, maybe even $40 range. And remember, we got AUS 8 on here. Not bad for the money. I mean, I see maybe 8CR13 MOV at this price, but AUS 8? Even better. Lastly, I'm just going to talk about the pocket clip. It's kind of phallic looking, whatever, but it gets the job done. It's perfect. I like how it's loop over. A lot of people are into that. There's not going to be a whole lot poking out, but it's tipped down. Sorry, you cannot swap it anywhere. That is the one hit I'll give this knife. You cannot swap the pocket clip anywhere, and it's tipped down only. Double hits, those are both bad things, unfortunately. But the tension's perfect on it. It carries okay. I have no issues pulling out of it. I just have to do the whole, pivot around my index finger and thumb thing to get it into my grip because I'm so used. 90%, 95, 98% of my folders are tip up. So I'm getting less and less used to the tip down every single day. So I keep forgetting. I keep trying to put it in this way. I'm like, oh, whoops, it's tipped down. Schrade, I do not know why you insist on doing that with a lot of your folders. I don't know what the reasoning is. I feel like the people have spoken across the knife world, on the internet anyway, but for whatever reason, you insist on doing the tip down thing. I would love to know why that is. Please let me know, Schrade. If you're watching this right now, could you please leave a comment? Not judging you, I think it's strange. So then again, maybe that is me judging you. Me saying I think it's strange is judging you. Yeah, sorry about that. Anyway, still love it. Really cool knife, actually. I like it for the money. For the $25, this is a home run, man. If you want a big, strong, heavy knife, it's not a triad lock. It's not the strongest locking mechanism in the world, but it's going to be stronger than a liner lock. Let's recap. I like how it's smooth, very fast, quick deployment, good jimping, even though you may not think it's the most comfortable. We have good ergonomics all around. It's very versatile. You can hold this in a lot of different positions, and it will work just fine for you. If you want to scooch down here, maybe throw a lanyard on there. You can have even more reach for tactical use. Pocket clip is functional. It's completely ambidextrous, except for the fact that you cannot swap the pocket clip to the left side, so that's a miss. I wish they would at least just tap some holes right here, so this would be a completely ambidextrous folder. Better yet, I wish they would tap the holes both down here instead, just ditch the tip down thing and just go with tip up. But oh well, they didn't want to do that. The Lockback, it's weird. It might just need to be broken in even more, even though I have been using this for a while. When you first whip it out, after a while, you can feel it kind of nudge a little bit, and then it locks into place. That might just be a thing for kind of cheaper, sloppier lockbacks. If you look really closely, here, let me show you this real quick. Focus, camera, focus. You can see the lockback is just barely a hair above the very edge of the top of the handle. I'm going to just crank on this a bit. Okay, I felt it pop out. Now look at that. It's a lot more flush if you look closely. So I don't know, the lockback just kind of has to pop into place. It just, again, might need to be broken in more as the steel slowly starts wearing. But again, for 25 bucks, it's really a great knife. Very simple, it's not like super cool or anything, but it's one of the best entry-level folders out there. If you know a plumber, an electrician, or professionals that use pocket knives that grab those pieces of crap that are $4 or $5 from hardware stores or from who knows where, this is going to kick all of those asses. It blows all of them out of the water, and it's only a good, 15, 20 bucks more, and you get a very, very good blade steel for the money. So good EDC/tactical blade, even though it's not the most slim, it's not the most light. And it's a lockback, not a liner lock or a side actuating locking mechanism. And I'm not a huge fan of that, but it's going to be stronger than liner locks again. So it's like the best junk knife out there. Like instead of pulling out some knife that you don't care about in order to cut something gunky or dirty or nasty, you don't want to clean it up, bring this guy with you instead. It's going to do the job way better, and you're probably not going to feel too bad about it, getting messy. You can always clean it, but yeah, pretty cool. I like it. There you go, the Schrade Ultimatum.